วัสดีครับพบกับผมนะครับสุภกิจบุญศาสตร์นายกสมาคมสินทรัพย์ดิจิทัลไทยนะครับวันนี้มาเป็นผู้ดำเนินรายการในรายการ AM PLUS Exclusive Episode นะครับเป็นตอนพิเศษเลยนะครับเพราะว่าตอนนี้เนี่ยเรามีแขกพิเศษที่บินตรงมาจากนิวยอร์กเลยนะครับเป็นคนที่ทำโปรเจกต์เกี่ยวกับเรื่องของดิจิทัลแอสเซทและคริปโตเคอเรนซีชื่อโปรเจกต์ Connext นะครับโดยได้รับทุนมาจากผู้ที่มีความสนใจจะร่วมลงทุนจาก Coinbase แล้วก็นักลงทุนฝั่ง Ethereum ด้วยนะครับตอนนี้เนี่ยอยู่ด้วยกันกับผมแล้วนะครับคุณอาจุนบุปธานีครับสวัสดีครับ Okay Arjun I already introduced you for the audience but we would like to understand you a little bit more could you please introduce yourselves and what is your company your occupation and what the Connext do?
Yeah, I'm Arjun. I'm the founder of Connext and the CEO of Connext Labs. Connext is a way for blockchains to communicate with each other. So right now there is, with existing blockchains like Ethereum and Bitcoin, one of the biggest problems that people have been talking about for the past few years is how do these systems scale? How do you actually make blockchains work at a price point, at a cost that is cheap enough for people to be able to use them? And we're realizing now that the best way to do that is to move to many different chains. Mm-hmm. Now the big problem with this is how, if you're a user using one chain, how do you interact with an application running on a different chain? How do you bring your money from here to over here? So Connext is a cross-chain liquidity network that allows you to move funds and also do more complex things directly between blockchains.
That's the point that you want to build the Connect, right?
Exactly. For us, Connext is such a big thing, it's such a big opportunity, and it's such an important piece of infrastructure that, for me at least, this has been the main thing in my life for the past 5 years.
In your viewpoint, your position on the crypto space, how much important in now and in the future?
How important crypto will be in the future?
Yeah.
So I think the world that we live in today is heading in a direction that is, at least to me, is increasingly concerning. And I think it's because of the fact that technology exists. I think it's because of the way that, the kind of the way that the world is evolving politically. Massive corporations, companies that can control everything about our reality.
Monopoly.
Right? Exactly.
Oligopoly.
Exactly. They are more powerful than many countries. And that's terrifying. I think crypto is our exit plan. I think people understand this idea. So I think crypto will be incredibly important because when you go and talk to people about this, they know that it's a problem for them, and they're looking for a solution, right? They might not understand the solution right now, and the solution itself is not really fully ready yet either, right? It's still something that's a work in progress. I mean, there's still so many scams, there's still so many hacks, there's still so many things that happen that break this system.
Yeah.
But at some point, we will figure it out. And when we do, this has the potential to fix this really, really big systemic issue. And a lot of people will care about it because of that.
When you're talking about your life, I would like to know a little bit more about your history and in the past. What is your life when you study in the kindergarten or preschool and high school?
I was born in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi. My parents are Indian. So I grew up in an Indian household, and then I went to school. I went to an American school. So I was there until I was 18. I graduated high school there. In high school I was really interested in pretty much everything. I really liked math and science a lot, but I also really liked music. I really liked writing. I think for me, I just have always had a very diverse set of interests. I think something that not enough people appreciate right now is that, everybody focuses right now on being very, very good at one thing. But I think when you have a broader set of interests, you're able to learn from, doing things over here. You're able to learn from math more about music. You're able to learn from, science more about sociology and about the world. And I think that there's some interesting overlaps because once you really start to get deeply into these fields, you realize that there are patterns between them. And so when I finished high school in the UAE, I ended up going to college in the US, in New York, in upstate New York, to a school called Colgate, and I studied physics and philosophy, two completely different subjects.
Physics and philosophy.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. But I would like to know when you are in high school, I think a lot of people doesn't know where would they go. It's
Yeah.
like a board in the ocean. How to know where to go?
Yeah.
What is in your mind when you are in the high school?
So yeah, that's a good question. When I was in high school, I wanted to study physics. I wanted to go get a PhD in physics. I ended up not going down that path, and we can get into why later. But I think one of the things is like, you know, even in high school, like I definitely had this interest, but I wasn't sure. And I think that's actually more common than people realize. Like it's very, you know, normally when you see people talking about their experiences, they'll say, oh no, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. But I think most people don't. I think when you're in high school, it's okay to not know. It's okay to just explore and to try different things. And because realistically, I mean, this happened to me, like you may spend a very long part of your life believing that there's, you know, this thing that you think you're interested in is the thing that you want to do with your life. But then someday something else will come along where you'll be like, wow, this is actually, you know, this is not just something I'm interested in, but this is what I'm meant to do. You know, this is my calling.
Now I would like to jump to the university life. I would like you to explain how you choose the university. What is the criteria that you select the university?
I you know, because I lived in the UAE and I wanted to go to university in the US. I think when you live in other countries and you try to go to university in the US, you only end up selecting the big names that everybody knows. Right? All of the Harvard, MIT, blah, blah, blah. Everybody does this because nobody knows any of the other names.
Yeah.
So what we ended up doing, luckily someone gave us advice that we should actually hire somebody to help with, a counselor to help with finding the right kind of university. But even then I applied to 11 different universities. And there was everything from, you know, like Princeton and things like that to small schools like Colgate. I ended up picking Colgate because, to be honest, I just had a feeling. Like I had a good feeling about it. I had a few different options, and all of the options were really good. But I think out of all of the ones that I looked at, all of the ones that I visited, Colgate was the one that I just felt like I could be happy at. And I felt really interested in being there. So that was a big part of it. Was just it's for some reason it just felt like the right place to me. It's also it's a surprisingly difficult school. I think a lot of people. There's, you know, obviously there's a lot of really high quality schools in the US, but from everything that I heard from people, Colgate was one of maybe 3 to 4 schools where they really don't, you know, it's incredibly difficult for students. They basically go out of their way to make sure that students are challenged. And I'm the kind of person that likes challenge. This is why I studied all of the things that I studied in high school and university.
Yeah. How about the major that you choose? What is the criteria that you choose to study in this area?
Like I mentioned, I was interested in physics in high school.
Yeah.
But I had also always been interested in philosophy. I think for me, those two things, you know, even though they're two completely different subjects, to me they actually fit together in a really interesting way. And so I ended up studying those two subjects partly because I was really interested in them, but also partly because I like a challenge. I think, you know, what you study in school, in high school and university doesn't matter as much as whether you push yourself. At that stage, you're not learning the subject, you're just learning how to learn. You can always learn any other topic in the future if you need to for work or for whatever you decide to do with your life. If you have the correct thinking skills and the correct learning skills, and if you've challenged yourself enough. There's a lot of like specific skills that I learned. So, you know, because I was studying really deep physics, I learned a lot about mathematics. I learned a lot about how to think about practical mathematics. And I learned, most importantly, how to do research, how to think in a research mindset. You know, I focused, my thesis ended up being about cosmology, the expansion of the universe, and math associated with the expansion of the universe. When you find these topics, diving deep into them is a good idea. And like the key thing that I learned there was the research skills of how do you actually take a problem that is really, really difficult, and then how do you turn that into a problem that is manageable, right? Into a set of smaller problems that you can work on a little bit every day, and then eventually make it so that that problem is not actually a big problem anymore.
I'm quite curious about how can you balance your life, like study, research, hang out,
Yeah.
playing sport. How can you manage it in the university life?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, universities are really intense, right? It's a period in your life where you're learning so much.
Yeah.
But this is also the first time in your life where you're with a lot of other people your age, so you get to be social and things like that. And I think that's really important. I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned in university was how to actually interact with people, how to like make friends, how to how to be a social person, because I don't think I was as much of a social person in high school. But it is difficult to balance, right? You have to find the right kind of way to do everything, and sometimes you'll get it wrong. And I think the good thing is that balance, learning how to balance and learning how to manage your time is actually also a skill that you learn from this, right? That's another thing that you have to learn how to do that university can teach you.
Yeah. It doesn't have the complete answer that fit to everybody.
Exactly.
You need to learn and fix yourself, because sometimes you made decision wrong, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. Just tomorrow you fix it.
Exactly. And I think that's a big part of it, is like a lot of people are really afraid of making the wrong decision, or afraid of committing to doing something really difficult because they're worried that they'll fail. They're worried that they'll make mistakes so that they won't get good grades. But I think if you kind of don't worry as much about that, and instead optimize for, okay, like this will be a great experience and I'll learn from it, it actually ends up being better in the long run. So I didn't always get great grades because in many cases I was studying way too many classes. I was also being social, and I had a big social group of friends, and I was involved in a lot of other activities. So sometimes I just didn't have time. I didn't have time to do all of those things and also sleep. And so sometimes I said, okay, you know what, I'm just sleeping. That's what I'm going to do today because I need to sleep. And I think like grades are obviously important, but I think it's like, it's like you have to find the balance. Like you have to understand what grades actually represent. And sometimes they don't actually represent your learning. They just represent your ability to do the work that you're doing in school.
Now, after you graduate, and you start to work, is it different?
I think like it used to be the case that people cared a lot more about your grades, your GPA, and other kinds of like metrics.
Yeah.
But I think it depends. Again, it depends on the industry. Like I think there's a lot of like traditional industries like finance and stuff where they still care a lot.
Yeah.
But in tech, and especially in crypto, it doesn't matter. When we hire, I've talked to people who are still in high school to try to hire them because they don't necessarily have good grades. I don't even know what grades they have, but it's because they're just really, really smart. They want to go and learn, and I think that's a big part of it. It's like when we hire, for instance, what we're looking for. What I look for, at least, is I'm not looking for people who have good grades. I'm not looking for people who have gone to like brand name schools. I'm looking for people who have challenged themselves. I'm looking for people who think creatively, who don't just go to like the normal formula. And I'm looking for people who care, people who really want to make a difference, people who aren't just applying to 500 jobs because they want to get a job. They're applying to Connext because they care about Connext and they want to be involved with what we're doing.
When you would like to start something in the career to do like Connect, what is the first trigger that you think?
So, when I was in university and studying physics, at the time I believed I wanted to go and do a PhD. So I was thinking I'll finish university, I'll start a PhD program, and then head towards, eventually teaching and doing research. Something that I realized at the time was that I think university was when I first really realized that I'm an extrovert and that I like being social. And I realized that with physics and with studying academics, you don't get that at all. And you instead have this, you're basically locked in a room reading for 8 years. And so I wanted to find ways to utilize the skills that I have, the background that I have, to be able to actually do something for the world right now, rather than research physics
for the future
isn't going to be relevant necessarily for people for 100 years.
Like you select the thing that you choose, create impact immediately. Yeah, great. But in working life, what is your core value and core principle that make you be like you?
So I think there's a couple of things. The first is, the idea is the difference between what you call a zero-sum mindset and a positive-sum mindset. So a zero-sum mindset is a mindset where you believe the only way for you to succeed is for other people to fail.
Yeah.
And a positive-sum mindset is that it's possible for you to create value for everybody. And I think the second principle is that Of course, there's chance involved when you're doing things, anything that you do, right? Whether you're starting a startup, you're trying to get a job, whether you're trying to, whatever it is that you're doing with your life, there's some chance involved. It's possible that things will not go well. It's possible they likely will not go well most of the time for a very long period of time. It's sort of like playing the lottery. And I don't think that lotteries are a good thing to play in general, but I think the way that you win the lottery is not by playing once and then putting, or like a game like poker, for instance. It's not by like playing one time and then putting a lot of money on one hand. It's by continuing to play over a long period of time. And eventually the chances get better and better and better. So what is it that makes people stay for a long period of time to keep trying things even though they keep failing? It's willpower, right? It's the desire to do things and the motivation to do things and not give up. Really, in order to succeed, sometimes it just takes trying for a long period of time, right? Before Connext, I actually tried starting three other startups before Connext. They all failed horribly. Even with Connext, we started in 2017, and then it took us 4 years to get to the point where we had any real traction, before we had any real users or anything, even we're working on something that people cared about. And during that time, we went through a bunch of different cycles where we were like, okay, we're working on this problem. Okay, maybe this is not the right problem to work on. Let's try this. Let's change the product. Let's throw out everything that we have and start all over again. It's not a pleasant process, but learning isn't a fun process, right? It's a painful process sometimes. But as you learn more and more, eventually you build better and better tools for understanding the world and also to be able to optimize this process itself. So you actually get faster and faster and faster at doing it.
But I heard you mentioned about the infrastructure. It's quite interesting. I would like to know, did you look like the cryptocurrency is an infrastructure or not? Or what is your perspective in your mind about the cryptocurrency?
When you're first learning about crypto, you know about the currencies themselves and people are investing, but there's also so much more beyond that. Like there's so much more that underlies this technology. When I first started looking into this in 2016, I was really interested in this idea of how can you build infrastructure like the internet? How can you create financial infrastructure, social infrastructure, coordination mechanisms that are not owned by a company, they're not owned by a government, but they're like the internet. They're just public. They're fundamentally accessible to everybody. I think the internet has been one of the most incredible things for our generation because it's basically been this huge equalizing force. No matter who you are, no matter where you are in the world, as long as you have access to the internet, you now have access to information. You have access to educational tools. You can learn anything, and you can become aware of any sort of idea. My goal when I first got into this space was how can we create more of that? How can we make it possible to build infrastructure like this? And I think crypto is this. The benefit that it provides is the ability to build new kinds of systems, new kinds of ways for people to coordinate with each other for governance, new kinds of ways to have financial infrastructure.
If the audience listen you and they may think you are the success person, I would like to know the secret sauce. How to be success like you.
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I don't think there is any secret sauce specifically. I think a lot of people think that you can take shortcuts. And there are shortcuts that you could take to become successful, right? A lot of people will just, you could go and, a lot of people do this, and there's a lot of this happens in crypto as well, where people will go and, create some ICO and raise a lot of money, and then now on paper you look successful. It's like on paper everyone is like, oh, this person is really, really famous and things like that. But
in real
that
life,
doesn't last.
Different.
Exactly. That doesn't last, right? It's like, that will work for a few years, but how do you create actual long-term success? How do you actually create a long-term change?
I would like you to suggest for a lot of audience that they are in the high school, if they looking for how to identify the skill set that they good at, what they good at can make them to be like a better career in the future. Do you have any suggestion?
I mean, identifying the things that you want to do is hard. And especially because I know in the world that we live in today, it's totally normal to have a very diverse set of skills. So I think the ideal thing that you do in your life is the confluence of three things in a triangle. And normally you have to pick between these three things, but if you can get all three of those things, then that is what you're meant to do. And the three things are something that you're good at,
Good at
something that helps the world, and something that you enjoy. So if you find something that does all three of those things, that's something that's worth trying to do, you know. And of course, you may find after a couple of years or something like that, you're no longer enjoying it, or it's no longer helping the world, or you're no longer good at it. That's okay. I mean, if you're no longer good at it, I would say keep going, keep trying to be better, you know, like keep working on yourself.
You know, my son already 16. He is already high school.
Yeah.
If I would like you to suggest him to to be like you. Yeah. I mean to work in the crypto space.
Yeah.
What you gonna suggest him to do?
Well, the first thing I would say is that is for him to not worry so much about being like me, but to worry about being himself. Right? Be the best version of himself.
Very good question. Very good answer.
Yeah. But I think like if he's interested in crypto and if he's interested in this sort of stuff, so what I would suggest to him is to just start exploring the space, start learning about it. Like that's the best way to get started, is to like read about crypto, to understand why it is that this technology exists, how it works, where it's going, and why people care about it. And from there start getting involved in a lot of the communities that exist, because these are fundamentally open ecosystems, right? So it's not like a company where you have to like go get an internship or a job to be able to learn how to get involved. To me, I think that would be the best place to start. If I was getting into the space today, and if I was a lot younger, like I would start just doing research and start trying to like work with these communities as much as possible.
It seems like you're gonna talk to him. Just be yourself. And jump into this space.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's it. Yeah.
In your opinion, which skill is necessary for the younger generation right now?
How to create, different ways to access creativity, like art, music, things like that. How to, like systems thinking, how to actually understand some broader problem or some broader system, and then like analyze that system, those and like the critical thinking skills that you have associated with that, and then how to design, how to actually like build things, how to basically like take an idea that you have and make it come to reality. This is really like, these are skills that I use every day. These are skills that everybody uses every day in any sort of job, but they're not ever taught, right? You learn these skills because you had to learn them in order to be able to do school. But we don't teach them directly at all. And for most students, most times, they don't end up learning these skills because they're not taught directly, right? You're never taught, okay, folk, don't worry about the correct answer. Worry about thinking about like the system. Worry about like, you know, thinking about what are the different ways that you can explore this mathematical concept, rather than just making sure you write down the correct answer in the exam. Until we move past this problem, I think we will never get to the point where the majority of the world's population is able to actually be open thinkers, right? They're able to kind of think at this level of being able to create and to be able to start and do anything.
But the last question, I would like to know how to make you happy when you work. Do you have any secret sauce?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's a really simple formula to happiness. So I don't think happiness is the thing to optimize on. I think happiness is like success, where it's like, it comes when you're not trying to chase happiness, right? It comes as a product of doing things in your life that are fulfilling. And I think there's a really simple formula for happiness. It's reality minus expectations. If your expectations for the world are extremely high, you're never going to be able to be happy.
It's
right?
a lot of gap.
Exactly. It's fine to fail while you're doing that.
That's why I always see your smile in your face. Be ambitious, but accept the real world and appreciate that.
Yeah.
Very good, very good, very good answer. เป็นคนหนึ่งที่มีวิธีคิดและหลักคิดที่ผมเองนี่ผมยังต้องยอมรับนะว่าตอนที่ผมอายุเท่าเขาเนี่ยผมไม่มีทางคิดได้แบบเขาแน่นอนนะครับหลายเรื่องนะครับในการใช้ชีวิตในตั้งแต่ตอนสมัยเรียนนะครับเรื่องของการที่เขากล้าที่จะลองเหมือน explore อ่ะคือค้นหาไม่รู้หรอกว่าอนาคตมันจะเป็นยังไงแต่ก็ลองทำไปก่อนค้นหาในสิ่งที่ตัวเองชอบในสิ่งที่ตัวเองรักนะครับเขาบอกถึง3เรื่องใช่ไหมที่ถ้าเราสามารถที่บรรจบกันได้ก็จะเป็นเรื่องที่ดีหาเจอว่าตัวเองทำอะไรได้ดีหาเจอว่าทำอะไรที่จะช่วยโลกได้หรือช่วยผู้คนส่วนมากได้นะครับหาเจอว่าเราทำอะไรแล้วเราสนุก 3 เรื่องนี้นี่สุดยอดมากๆเลยถ้าเราหาเจอเนี่ยเราจะเป็นคนที่โชคดีสุดๆในชีวิตเลยนะครับแล้วเขาเป็นคนที่มี mindset ดีมากๆเลยไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องของการที่ออกไปเรียนรู้ด้วยตัวเองก่อนการที่ล้มเหลวเนี่ยก็มองว่ามันไม่ใช่เรื่องที่เป็นเรื่องแปลกอะไรแต่ว่าให้กลับมาทบทวนเพื่อที่จะหาว่าเราได้เรียนรู้อะไรจากการที่ได้ล้มเหลวไปบ้างสุดท้ายในตอนท้ายนี่พี่ชอบมากๆเลยก็คือเรื่องของการที่เขาเองเนี่ยมองว่าการที่เป้าหมายของชีวิตเนี่ยหวังสูงได้แต่ว่าในชีวิตจริงเนี่ยมันอาจจะไม่ได้สูงตามเป้ามันจะมีช่องว่างอยู่เราต้องยอมรับความเป็นจริงแล้วเราก็พึงพอใจหรือภาคภูมิใจในปัจจุบันที่เป็นอยู่แต่ว่าก็ไม่ลดละที่จะดันตัวเองขึ้นไปให้ถึงเป้าหมายอันนั้นสำหรับในตอนนี้เนี่ยก็เป็นตอนพิเศษที่ผมเนี่ยได้อะไรมากๆเลยจากอีกวัยหนึ่งกับอีกคนหนึ่งที่มีความคิดแล้วก็มีprinciple หรือ foundation ทางความคิดเนี่ยที่ทำให้ตัวเองเนี่ยขึ้นมาอยู่จุดที่นับได้ว่าสูงในระดับโลกได้นะครับก็อยากให้เป็นแรงบันดาลใจกับน้องๆที่ดูในรายการนะครับว่าจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยเราก็เป็นแบบนี้ได้เพียงแค่เราตั้งหลักหรือตั้งลำทางความคิดให้ตรงนะครับอย่ากลัวในอนาคตที่จะเกิดค้นหาตัวเองให้เจอว่าตัวเองชอบอะไรนะครับหวังว่าน้องๆทุกคนคงจะได้แรงบันดาลใจแล้วอย่าลืมกลับไปทำทันทีนะครับThis session is very grateful for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
สวัสดีครับ